morning, all. It is Monday, November 4th, 2019, and you are currently tuning into the Five Starr Wrestling Report. This is the YouTube channel dedicated to bringing you all of the major news reports in professional wrestling throughout the week. We have 2 uploads on this channel weekly, including a Monday edition, where we discuss news reports and weekend events and recaps, as well as our Friday edition, wherein we cover NWA Power, AEW Dynamite, and NXT. If you're checking out the show for the first time, welcome aboard. If you are engaged throughout and you would like to keep updated with all future FSWR content, do yourselves a favor and click that subscribe button there, as well as that bell icon to keep yourselves notified on any FSWR related uploads. Again, that is 2 uploads we have every week for your viewing pleasure. Got a lot to talk about, as per usual. It's been a very eventful week in pro wrestling, particularly with WWE. And while the big story with WWE this week mostly centers around their crown jewel show from Saudi Arabia, that big story really has nothing to do with the actual show itself, but rather the fallout to what happened after the event took place. Now, I guess I should preface by saying that I did not watch the show itself, so I'm in no position to give you any thoughts of what I thought of the show overall, because I didn't watch it. From the reports that I've read, most people are saying it was anywhere on the spectrum between fine to completely forgettable to downright atrocious. So I guess the whole thing rests on your expectations heading into the show. I've never put much stock in these Saudi Arabia shows. A lot of people have viewed them as glorified house show events, and, essentially that's what they are. I know they try to go out of their way to promote these a little more than they have in the past, but essentially that's how you have to look at these shows. They're glorified vanity projects. I mean, that's basically what it boils down to. Anyway, like I said, the big talk of the show has virtually nothing to do with the matches or the actual show itself. And I couldn't figure out how to initially coin the whole Saudi deal. I mean, eventually I just wrote down Saudi saga in my notes. And truth be told, I think that is the best way that you can sum up the whole ordeal. It was quite the saga. And the amazing thing about it is that as of today's current recording, we still do not have the full details regarding what went down overseas following the Crown Jewel event. And I think the best methodology for breaking down a long story such as this one is to just read you the entire thing verbatim from all the various articles and sources that I've been able to gather data from. And, while I'm talking about the various subject matter, I'll throw in my thoughts should I have any opinions on it. So the most recent article that I found on this story comes from Alex Richards over at The Mirror, and it covers the entire story from the beginning to where we are at currently with knowledge pertaining to the matter. Over 175 WWE superstars, crew, and employees were stranded in Saudi Arabia after Thursday's Crown Jewel pay-per-view. However, Friday Night SmackDown was not to be postponed and did go ahead. And very quick, I'll just chime in here. For those of you that did not see SmackDown this past Friday, WWE flew in a group of NXT talent to shoot some angles and book some interpromotional matches for the Buffalo show. And I actually did have time on Sunday night, so I went ahead and watched the whole show in its entirety. It is the first episode of SmackDown that I have watched since their debut on Fox a month ago. And suffice it to say, I think the show's been overhyped in a lot of reports. There was one good TV match, and it was obviously the Adam Cole-Daniel Bryan NXT title match. And by good, I mean it was just good. It was not blowaway, it was not memorable, and for a match that a lot of people were hyping up as a dream match, I really don't think it delivered. Shayna jumping Bayley was a fine angle. Keith Lee and Matt Riddle beating up Sami Zayn was what it was. I thought Tommaso Ciampa versus The Miz sucked a fat one, and the promo beforehand was lame. And the Rhea Ripley, Tegan Nox versus whatever the hell their names are, Mandy and Sonya, was that it? Anyway, that was a nothing match. Now, maybe a lot of this was a reflection on the god-awful Buffalo crowd that barely reacted to anything throughout the show. I was not a particular fan of the commentary, and I have no idea when Renee Young became a heel color commentator, but I guess that is a thing that is happening now. She also got kicked in the face during that women's tag match, which was unintentionally funny, even though apparently she got her nose busted open or something. Maybe if they were in a livelier venue, everything would have come off better, but overall, I did not think that show was good at all. Maybe I'm in the minority on that one. Maybe it's just a reflection of seeing better programming with NXT and AEW most weeks, and NWA for that matter too. I don't know what it was, but I think a lot of people are overestimating the success of that show. Or, who knows, maybe it really was a good show to people that have been watching SmackDown consistently, which really goes to show you just how horrible they've been on Fox since they debuted there. So if that was one of the better shows that they've been producing all year with SmackDown, then I'm glad I stopped watching that show when I did. Anyway, continuing with the article here. WWE hosted their Crown Jewel event in the Middle East country on Thursday. After the event, however, stars and crew from both Raw and SmackDown became stranded in Riyadh. WWE statement reports, more than 175 superstars, production crew, and employees boarded a 747 charter flight back to the United States on Thursday. After the door closed, due to several aircraft problems, including mechanical issues, all passengers sat on the tarmac for more than 6 hours. With SmackDown set to emanate live from Buffalo, New York, several superstars felt so strongly that they arranged for their own separate charter in order to make it back to the U.S. for the show. Due to unforeseen issues, that charter would not land until after the live broadcast on Fox. So let me break that whole segment apart right there, because there's a lot to digest. First of all, the WWE report issued the statement that talent had to try and arrange their own charter flights back to the States to try and make it for the SmackDown show. That was from them. Well, apparently, that statement was a complete lie, because Dave Meltzer reported on the Sunday Observer that guys in the company reported to him that nobody was going out of their way to arrange their own charter flights. Now, of course, that begs the obvious question, well, why would WWE openly lie about something like that? My guess, and of course this is merely speculation, but if I had to take a shot in the dark here, I would say that it's just their corporate way to try and assuage people's concern. My bigger question coming out of this statement is actually the follow-up statement. Due to unforeseen issues, that charter would not land until after the live broadcast on Fox. Okay, first of all, how would WWE know this if guys were chartering their own private flights? And secondly, if it turns out that the private charter thing was just a corporate spin on the situation, then what were WWE referring to when they were noting the unforeseen issues for the private charter planes? Do they also have mechanical issues? So that makes no sense. Continuing along here. The incident comes after WWE chiefs revealed to investors on Thursday that WWE hadn't renewed broadcast deals in key overseas markets, including Saudi Arabia. Now, of course, you read a statement like that, and when you read into the bulk of the conversation, you can come up with a variety of assumptions on how this could have tied in with the flight delay. Now, because I don't have any verification on that matter, I can't say for sure. But, there are definitely people that can make the assumption that these two stories are interlinked with each other. It should also be noted here that there were several tweets from WWE talents that went public, including a couple ominous statements from talents Buddy Murphy and Rusev. Buddy Murphy's tweet simply reads, "Never again." And Rusev sent out a couple tweets, one of which read, "At this point, we need all the prayers, brother." So again, you can read into those as you please. So over the weekend, there have been numerous articles covering the situation. And one of those reporters over at The Mix, Sandra Dedeen, who I think I've covered articles from her on this program before, She covered Brian Alvarez's take on Wrestling Observer Radio. One of the men who has been quite critical about the incident is Brian Alvarez from Wrestling Observer Newsletter. He claims there is no mechanical issue with the plane. This seems to be supported by tweets from stranded superstars. And this is Brian's statement taken from the Sunday edition of Wrestling Observer Radio, which I'm going to play for you right now.
All I know is that there are people there who have insisted that there was no mechanical issue. That's not why the flight did not take off. The fact that several people left and got off that and tried to charter a second flight, and that one is also not going to make it back in time. I mean, we'd have to believe that that flight also just happened to have mechanical issues. I also know that the talent last night was told that you're probably not going to take off for another 12 to 14 hours. Now, I have been on flights before where when we were about to take off, there were mechanical issues. And the mechanical issues weren't going to be cleared up for several hours. And we were just taken off the plane and put on another flight, and we left. So it's a very strange story here. There's obviously more to the story that we have not been told. And I presume that we are going to hear more about it over the next 24 to 48 hours.
So as we continue along with the story, we find other wrinkles added into the fold that makes this ordeal even more unsettling. In Joshua Hagnan's recent report on Wrestling Inc., per Dave Meltzer's report on Wrestling Observer Radio, it was reported WWE wasn't paid for the WWE Super Showdown in Saudi Arabia on June 7th as of September 30th. It was noted in the WWE third quarter ratings earning call, WWE avoided answering questions regarding Saudi Arabia, although they did mention getting $60 million after September 30th, when the report closes, and before October 31st, hours before Crown Jewel. Meltzer noted that there was clearly money owed by the Saudis. Because of this, Vince McMahon didn't televise Crown Jewel live in Saudi Arabia, and it ended up being on a delay after the two sides made an agreement during the show. Now, I'll tell you up front, I read a statement like that, and the warning bells immediately flash in my head. I mean, the idea that the Saudi government would intentionally withhold funds owed to WWE for a 10-year deal that was made only a year ago, that's pretty unsettling. I mean, they've done, 4 events with them now? Between the course of 2018 and 2019? Not counting house shows, obviously. And considering the amount of money that WWE is anticipated to garner from doing these shows, and to hear that their expenses haven't been paid for a show that's just happened over the summer, it's disconcerting. I mean, $60 million is a considerable amount of money, particularly for this company. And hearing the substantial delay that they hadn't been paid for the Super Showdown pay-per-view this summer, I have to wonder, what was the initial problem that prevented the Saudi government from paying WWE for that event? And if this was an ongoing issue that only got resolved at the end of the third quarter of WWE's annual income, who's to say that this same problem wouldn't occur for the Crown Jewel show? How long are they going to have to wait this time before they receive their funds for that event? And as far as the whole deal with Vince holding up the live feed for the event in Saudi Arabia so that it had to be aired on delay, you can ask the question, how much of this is tied into the fallout to everything that went down after the pay-per-view? In regards to the plane having mechanical failures, a majority of talent that reached out to Meltzer didn't believe the story. Military police were there while they waited, not to mention it took 24 hours for them to finally go, and the second flight that was supposed to go was also delayed. So again, this brings up speculation of whether or not the mechanical issues were just mechanical issues or something more severe. Some talent have reportedly said that they will not go back to Saudi Arabia and can't wait to get out of the company. A lot of people were upset that Vince left the country on his private jet and that they were still stuck there. Superstars were said to have felt deserted. Now, the problem with an assertion like this is that it all hangs on whether or not Vince knew of the situation before the talent was held up. If it turns out that Vince was unaware of everything until he got back overseas, there's not a lot you can say about it. It's just like talent can say that Vince and the staff left them to fend for themselves, but, maybe Vince wasn't aware of the situation until later on. Now, of course, you could sit there and say, well, if Vince found out about it when he landed in the States, why didn't he arrange for a commercial plane to fly in and pick up the talent instead of leaving them to basically, have one big circle, for an additional day? And it's a valid question. I don't have an answer for you. I am completely stuck on that one. Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman left on their own private jet. Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan, and Jimmy Hart left the country on their private jet. It was believed Tyson Fury also left on one of those private planes, while Cain Velasquez was among the group that stayed longer. And by the way, what a big middle finger to Cain Velasquez, am I right? Not only is the dude sitting there and jobbing out in his first WWE match in 2 minutes, but on top of that, he's being held in Saudi Arabia for a whole day with WWE talent while the staff and the megastars are traveling on their own private flights. Welcome to WWE, Kane. A human purgatory come to life. Hope the big money contract's worth all the hassle. Anyway, that's a hell of a scary situation there. And the scariest thing to me is that as of this current recording, we do not have all the answers regarding the matter. We know that the talent got back safely and that nobody was physically harmed in the situation. Forbes reported that the talent arrived at the JFK airport on Friday afternoon around 12:52 p.m. Eastern Time. And apparently the talent have been, going off, shall we say, on social media about the situation, and this is still ongoing as we currently speak. So talent is not happy about this. We'll just put it that way. They are supremely frustrated, and I think that's putting it kindly. But even as we reflect on everything that's happened over the last few days, we read all the details and the rumors and the stories, some true, some rumors, some flat-out lies. There's still so many answered questions right now. Was it a terror threat? Was it really mechanical issues? Why were there multiple flights delayed for over a 24-hour period, essentially holding the talent hostage overseas? Was Vince cognizant of the situation prior to his departure, along with his personal staff? If he was, did he really leave the talent to fend for themselves in Riyadh? Here's another big follow-up question. How's the talent going to respond to this? Is there going to be some kind of backlash from it? Will there be some form of leadership from a top guy in the locker room to confront Vince about it? Are the guys going to try and protest going back to Saudi Arabia ever again? Or are they all just going to be corporate shills about it and pretend that everything's hunky-dory going forward? There's a lot to take away from this. And while I may not have dived into this as much as I probably could have, I'll tell you what, this is one of the most intriguing stories that I have seen and read about all year in professional wrestling. Just to give you a brief recap of where we are at now, I'm glad everything's fine and nobody was harmed in the situation. But with everything that's transpired and with the controversy already surrounding the initial WWE Saudi deal to begin with, I really am wondering if this is the catalyst that gets the talent to finally step up to Vince and protest it. The skeptic in me says they won't because, everyone in WWE practically fears for their job. But you never know. I've been wrong before, and in this particular case, I would love to be proven wrong. So at the beginning of the week, WWE's Quarter 3 term report came out. And it is up on WWE's website as we speak. If you care to read the entire thing straight down, be my guest. But for the sake of time, I'm going to read you the highlighted portion of the earnings report and just give you my overall impression based on what I am gathering from the numbers. One of the problems of reading these reports strictly from WWE's website is that, while you are provided with side-by-side graphs comparing previous quarters and yearly numbers in particular categories, you're not really provided with an analysis of anything. It's a very one-sided report to try and mask any potential flaws in comparison to previous quarter reports. As expected with a company that's putting it on their own website. Why would they sit there and say like, oh, business is terrible. Read about it on our own personal website. That'll keep our stock up. So anyway, here's a Cliff's Notes breakdown of everything. Revenues were $186.3 million as compared to $188.4 million in the prior year quarter. Operating income decreased to $6.4 million from $18.1 million in the prior year quarter, reflecting the decline in revenue and increases in fixed costs. The company's operating income margin declined to 3% from 10% in the prior quarter year. Adjusted OIBDA, which excludes stock compensation, was $25.4 million as compared to $35.8 million in the prior year quarter. Net income declined to $5.8 million, or 6 cents per diluted share, from $33.6 million, or 37 cents per diluted share, in the third quarter of 2018. Cash flows generated by operating activities were $3.2 million as compared to $44.7 million in the prior year quarter, driven by unfavorable timing of working capital and lower operating performance. Free cash flow was $16.4 million use of cash as compared to a $35.5 million source of cash in the third quarter of 2018, primarily driven by the change in operating cash flow. Cash equivalents, and short-term investments were $231 million as of September 30th, 2019, and the company estimates debt capacity under its revolving line of credit of approximately $200 million. So how do you read into this? And, what's the big takeaway from WWE's performance in this quarter, aside from the obvious fact of analyzing the continual dwindling in WWE's earnings from year to year? Well, here's the undeniable fact about their stock. And this information is all verified on the Forbes website as well if you would like further verification. Company stock tumbled 15.65% by the end of the trading day, falling by $10.40 from $66.44 to $56.04. Specifically, WWE changed their profit guidance for the whole of 2019, and that appears to have led to a bit of a sell-off. And actually, as of this current recording, as I open my Google sources right now, the stock is actually reduced to $55.96. So we are still plummeting at an astronomical rate. Thumbs up to that. In terms of network subscribers, average paid subscribers decreased 9% to approximately 1.51 million. For the fourth quarter of 2019, the company projects average paid subscribers of approximately 1.43 million, representing a year-over-year decline of 10%. So in other words, if my math is correct here, wasn't my strong suit in college, but bear with me here, if they are estimating a decline of 10% from year to year in network subscriptions, then by the year 2021, WWE will be under 1 million subscribers for their network subscriptions. And judging how hard they pushed this creation back in 2014 as a way to revolutionize the foundation of how fans view wrestling, what with less reliance on TV and pay-per-view and working more towards a subscription-based product, the fact that there's been a massive drop-off in subscriptions in just 7 years should really tell you something right there. I mean, keep in mind, too, in April of 2018, a little over 1 year ago, WWE's Quarter 1 report for 2018 showed their reach of 2.1 million network subscribers. That was the highest they ever peaked. And now here we are, going into the year 2020, and we are already suggesting the idea that within the next 1 to 2 years, there is a possibility that WWE will be under 1 million network subscribers. That's scary. And there's a whole other spectrum outside of the numbers deal, and that's the ratings deal. And the bottom line right now, look at the statistics. Raw ratings suck, SmackDown's ratings suck, NXT's ratings are rapidly tapering off. People are just not going out of their way to watch these shows. And meanwhile, you've got USA Network and Fox plunking all of this money into their weekly programming with the impression being that they're going to garner new eyeballs and keep those fans' interest long term. And we're just not seeing it. Just this week, Raw's October 28th show scored its worst rating of the year, averaging out at 2.13 million and falling under the 2 million mark in the third hour. SmackDown dropped from 3.88 million viewers on their debut show on Fox on October 4th to now they're barely squeaking by a 2.5. Now, granted, they saw a 14.3 increase in viewership this past week, probably due in large part to the NXT Invasion deal. Is the slight increase sustainable over a period of time? I guess we'll have to wait and find out, but if I were a betting man, I'd be hesitant to say it's not sustainable. Usually it's not. And speaking of NXT, they're struggling going up against AEW every Wednesday night. So they're in the same boat, unfortunately. Going from 1.1 million on their debut show on USA to bottoming out at 580,000 viewers just this past week, there's something not clicking there. And granted, I know this last week isn't a good comparison because NXT and AEW were going up against Game 7 of the World Series. And I do expect these numbers to be up exponentially this week. But these track records for WWE programming have not favored them well. With them moving 2 of their televised programs to 2 major cable network stations, the continual decline in week-to-week viewership should really be flashing off some warning bells. And I'm not just talking for WWE, I'm also talking for these networks that are plunking all this money into that program. So again, what do you take away from all this? Well, I've thrown around a lot of numbers, but if I had to give you my basic 2019 black and white interpretation of the matter, here's what I'd tell you. Professional wrestling is not as hot a product as people would like it to be. WWE's television programs are not generating fan interest, and in a lot of cases, it's actually turning them off from WWE content altogether, including network subscriptions, tickets, and merchandise droppings. And as we look at these drop-offs in various aspects of their earnings, it doesn't look like these numbers are signaling any kind of upward momentum or direction anytime soon. That's all I've got. I mean, I could sit here for hours and tell you everything that's wrong with professional wrestling, specifically WWE's interpretation of modern pro wrestling, and why it's not capturing anybody's interests. But really, if you want a prime model without me having to go into elongated detail, watch the shows, man. They speak for themselves. You'll see on a week-to-week basis, WWE has absolutely no concept of how to produce a competent and logical professional wrestling television show. They don't. Storylines suck. Their characters suck. Their matches are all very formulaic. They have no idea how to write for heroes and villains anymore. They intentionally sabotage anything good they have for no discernible reason. See Cain Velasquez, see Bray Wyatt. They have no vision for where they're taking their company. They basically turned their television show into the modern-day WCW 2000. The only difference is that WWE is still financially stable, whereas WCW in 2000 was spending themselves into oblivion week to week. And like I said, it would be fantastic. It would be great to have things turned around in the next fiscal term. But in order to do that, they're going to have to make some drastic changes. And the bulk of that is going to come from completely revamping their TV programming. You've got to give people an incentive to watch every week. And based on the content that they're producing right now, it ain't working. Just put it that way. Well, looks like Jim Cornette is under some hot water again. This time all centered around some controversial statements regarding Jim's rather vulgar comments to former Progress Wrestling announcer Jim Smallman. So Ryan Satin reported on the matter earlier in the week, but just to catch you up to speed in case you need to tune into the whole situation, Cornette made a statement on a podcast interview regarding Jim Smallman and that he should be, quote, hung in a car park, essentially because Cornette was offended at the way that Smallman dressed at an indie show for announcing. And obviously this was bound to spark attention on social media, and that it did. NWA VP Dave Lagana sent out a press release indicating that NWA does not condone Cornette's behavior and that they take suicide prevention seriously as an organization. And of course Jim, being Jim, got into a big heated Twitter battle with Progress exec producer Glenn Joseph. He also got into a spout with another young girl that called out Jim for not taking suicide seriously. The whole thing's a complete mess. And I know a lot of people are going to read into this as Jim Cornette just being Jim Cornette, and that's that. And to tell you the truth, I honestly don't know how else to respond. For a guy that likes to sit there and admonish Donald Trump on virtually every podcast for being a racist and a misogynist and a self-centered pig. Jim, let's call a spade here. If we're being honest, you don't exactly have a squeaky clean track record when it comes to this kind of verbiage either, my friend. As much of a pleasure as it is to listen to your stories about wrestling and, here you go on tangents on this, that, and the other thing. Look, the bottom line is that Jim Cornette has no filter, and this is not breaking news. He'll spout crap out of every hole in his body with absolutely no regard for anyone's feelings. And in some circumstances, I can respect that. In the fear-driven culture we live in today, where everyone's watching what they say, and you got all these mongering activist groups trying to take away people's right to freedom of speech with these hashtag cancel culture things and all this petty nonsensical BS. It makes me happy that we have guys like Jim Cornette that aren't afraid to speak his mind and just give his honest opinion on what he thinks. But the truth of the matter is that sometimes it's best to just keep your damn mouth shut and not say anything at all. And unfortunately, at age 57 or 58, whatever it is, Jim Cornette has still not found that censor button with his commentary. And the thing that really sucks about reading a story like this is that, aside from the fact that it's completely uncalled for and it's just Jim getting angry over small things that really don't matter in the grand scheme of things, it's also coming from a guy that I have a lot of respect for historically, and a guy that I had a lot of fun watching on TV growing up. Those promos he cut in Mid-South, NWA, and Smoky Mountain Wrestling, his ability to really captivate my attention when he'd be standing there spatting off heel verbiage on Bullet Barb Armstrong or putting over guys like the Midnight Express or the Heavenly Bodies. Like, that stuff wasn't all hype, man. Jim Cornette really knew how to be an unlikable prick on TV. And unfortunately, when I see this kind of stuff get translated over into the real world, it just makes me shake my head. The real world should not be a professional wrestling shoot for Jim Cornette. I understand his passion for the business, and I know why he gets angry about a lot of the stuff in the modern business, as he has every right to be. There are a lot of things that happen in modern-day professional wrestling that I absolutely hate. But this kind of stuff here, this kind of verbiage, this kind of commentary is just uncalled for in every conceivable way. Jim, I know you're never going to hear this, and I know you probably could care less about a random schmuck like me giving you real-world advice, but if you would like to pick up the advice, here's what I would tell you. You got a lot of people that support you, and you've got a lot of people that enjoy your content. You always provide your honest view of what you believe. And even if we may not agree with it, we appreciate your analysis of everything you watch. You're also historically one of the greatest wrestling managers and promos of my lifetime. Focus on what makes you successful. You're a smart guy with a lot of perceptive knowledge of the wrestling business. You run 2 successful podcasts. Your books are great sellers. I have one that I'm currently reading. You run a website with all kinds of merchandise for loyal customers. Don't let the petty stuff falter your image with deplorable remarks when a smart guy like you should know better. Your biggest downfall is that unfiltered hole under your nose that continually spews out things that don't always need to be said aloud. Much like our current president, ironically enough. The same guy that you, Jim, proclaim to be the single biggest threat to our country. Don't be part of that culture of hate. You've got way too many attributes and feats that should put you above that. So, that's my speech. Take from it what you will. Anyway, that's pretty much everything in terms of the major talking points for the week. I know there was some follow-up on the Jordan Myles situation regarding the t-shirt deal. If you want to hear my full thoughts regarding that, check out last week's FSWR edition where I covered that whole story in its entirety. Well, at least up to the point of the knowledge that we knew of the story. The only real portion that I haven't had time to include was everything regarding the Jay Lethal situation. And just to give you a brief summary of the matter, a series of tweets following Jordan's outburst regarding his t-shirt deal, he also went out of his way to target ROH for being a racist-driven company, with the added statement of referring to Jay Lethal as being an Uncle Tom. Those tweets have since been deleted. According to Kevon Flavius' report at the Sportster, Jordan Myles rejected the notion of apologizing to Jay Lethal, but admits he should have handled things privately and kept his grievances off of the internet. Both Booker T and Titus O'Neil offered advice to Myles, while it has been suggested that he should offer the two-time ROH World Champion an apology. Jordan, though, thought it was funny when a fan told him that he needed to apologize publicly, and responded with a tweet captioned, "Ha ha 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 ha, I'll apologize for not being sorry." Myles is now putting out there that he respects the two-time WWE Hall of Famer and wants to be invited to the podcast so that they can discuss things. This referring to Booker T's podcast. So that's really where we're at with the whole saga. I know there are a lot of people on social media that are having a harder time defending Jordan. And based on the fallout to everything in the last couple of weeks, kind of in that same boat, man. I don't blame those people. Yeah, granted, we still don't really have any kind of real resolution on the matter for both parties. I think a lot of people feel that they should just let Jordan go now, which if you're WWE, it's hard to really argue against why that would be a bad idea at this point. I mean, let's just call it as it is. He's never going to get a major push again. The company will never put stock into his character going forward. From the rumors and reports I've read, some sites are saying that Jordan's been pulled from house show events too. What do they really have to gain by keeping the guy under contract? It's obvious the dude doesn't want to work there, so, I hate to say it, but screw him. Let him go. Why should you be paying for added expenses that you don't really need? I mean, you've already got a handful of talents under contract that you don't really want there anyway, and that you're just using them to, or you're just keeping them there to punish them. Are you going to do the same for Jordan Myles? I mean, the dude's still going to get a paycheck at the end of the day, so how is this really benefiting you? And, for the people that are saying, well, if WWE lets him go, where is he going to end up? And there's some truth to that. I mean, he already burned his bridges with ROH. AEW has already been on record saying that they're not looking to pick up every WWE reject talent, so I don't really know. I guess there's always Impact, but those guys make pocket change compared to what WWE and AEW talent make. That being said, Impact does have a national cable TV deal with Access now, so if Jordan was looking to stay in wrestling in a televised capacity, that'd be one way to go. That is if they want to offer him a contract, which I'm not sure if they do. He's got options. All I know is that from everything that's transpired with the t-shirt, to his comments about WWE's racial discrimination, to calling out ROH for the same deal, and to maliciously and, quite frankly, gratuitously calling out former colleagues like Jay Lethal, to continually posting outrageous tweets on social media. I mean, this guy's a revolving door of controversy. If I were a wrestling company following this story, I wouldn't hire him. He's too erratic. And if you're opening the doors for this guy to work for your company, from what we've seen out of Jordan over the last couple of weeks, you're also opening the doors for him to cause a firestorm in your company. With that said, everyone, that'll about wrap it up for this show. Thanks for watching if you stuck through the whole thing. Again, if you'd like to keep yourselves posted with FSWR content, make sure you subscribe. Give this video a rating, and please go ahead and share your feedback with anything discussed in this video today. There's a lot to talk about and a lot of stuff that I probably did not cover, so I'd love to hear your thoughts on everything regarding the discussions and the topics that I covered today. Until then, I'll catch up with you all on Friday for the Review Series edition. Take care.